52 episodes, 52 ordinary people, 52 real stories about things that affect overall health. Because there is a lot more that goes into being healthy than food and fitness. Inspiration, support, a new perspective, and knowledge. You'll find that and more here on the Healthability Project.
Hi, welcome to the Healthability Project. I'm Robin McKenna. All of us at some point in our lives will find ourselves in a situation or state of existence we really don't want to be in. Sometimes things that were a good fit become a bad fit. Career, significant others, relationships with family or friends all come to mind. We soldier on, though, for a variety of reasons. Obligations to others, fear of judgment, lack of resources to make a change, or simply because we just don't know how to extricate ourselves from that situation. And oftentimes, we don't even really realize we're in this less than happy place. But we see it and feel it. Physical illnesses bubble up, and right behind that are often symptoms such as insomnia, anxiety, depression, and irritability. Here to share her story of how her overall health and well-being were affected by a less than optimal state of existence and how she got through it is Heather Markel. Heather Markel is a certified professional coach, a New York Times featured full-time travel and business coach who is herself a full-time traveler. Heather quit her 25-plus year corporate career in 2017, expecting to take a 3 to 6 month career break to travel the world. Instead, she found her calling, and almost 6 years later, she's been to 33 countries on 6 continents, including being marooned in New Zealand 2 years during the pandemic. She's now a best-selling author and a TEDx speaker. Heather helps her clients to transition to the full-time travel lifestyle by teaching them the mindset, money, and mastery skills they need to ditch their desk and discover their destiny through full-time travel. Thanks so much for joining me today, Heather. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Very excited.
Your story is really, really interesting from so many standpoints. And I find it just so inspirational as well, because you found yourself in a situation that was less than optimal, and you did the brave thing, which a lot of us really can't or don't do. And you pretty much ripped the Band-Aid off and said, that's it. I'm done. I'm making a change. So tell us about this.
Although I would say, I don't think I ripped the Band-Aid off. I feel like it was one of those slow, like, So, let's see. I was really unhappy for a long time. I started at age 16. I lived with a host family in Normandy, France. Went there speaking rudimentary French. And after a month with them, essentially became fluent in French, felt like I had found a whole new culture, a whole new family, and a whole new experience living there. And I just came back from that like, wow, this is a whole piece of life I want to explore. But of course, I had to go to college, and then I had to get a job, and I bought into what we all do, that we're supposed to work 9 to 5 or 80 hours a week, depending, and then get married and then have kids. And so I tried that normal life, and I ended up, in a career that excited me for a while, but then didn't, and I couldn't figure out where to go. And then I got married, and I was just miserable, just married the wrong person for me, and got to a point where, like you said, it would have been easier. And that's what I said when I asked for a divorce. I said, it would have been easier to stay married, but I didn't think it was better. Mm-hmm. And the catalyst for that was years of ping-ponging emotions between my head and my heart, resulting in 2 herniated discs in my neck, which was, I think, to date, the most excruciating pain I've ever heard, ever felt in my life. And, it's pain that I still have on it, not to that degree, but, it's a reminder, like you said earlier, that if we have strong emotions and we don't deal with them, they become physical symptoms. So once I was divorced, I was free to see that, oh gosh, I'm really unhappy at work too. Like this is another area I've been kind of sticking it out because I feel like I have to.
Quick question. When you got divorced, did you feel some kind of physical or emotional relief or release? Did you notice did the pain in your neck diminish?
Well, I mean, I got the pain in the neck treated, but I will say I dropped 3 dress sizes pretty quickly. I was just happy, So yeah. Because literally I felt emotionally like I was carrying around, he was a bit depressed too. And I felt like I was carrying his depression. So when we got divorced, I was like, oh my God, I was literally carrying around other stuff that doesn't belong with me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was really hard. And then when I realized I was unhappy at work, I did all the stuff I was supposed to do. I tried therapy. I tried volunteering, after work activities, trying to look into graduate school classes. I did everything. And all that did was make me feel like I was pulling myself in 15 directions. I even started my business coach business where I was out earning my corporate salary in that. And then I was like, but to do that, I had to burn out. Right. And so one day, every year for years, I would say, all right, January, this is the year. I'm going to quit my job this year and I'm going to go and, do something. Originally, I was going to quit for my business. And then, I get to December and it hadn't happened. And I'd be depressed for a week. And then January would come and I'd be like, all right, new year, this is my year. And then after that cycle, I got to January of 2017. And that 1 week depression from December was still with me and has now been a month that I'm depressed. And I started feeling a pain in my chest.
Was the depression about the fact that you had once again not done what you said you were going to do, or was it something else?
It was both. I think that it was like a broken record. I'm listening to myself say this, let myself down again, and not knowing what to do. And so, I think the two just came together.
It's interesting, just to take a step back, what you said earlier about you were miserable at work and you tried all these other things, but at the crux of the issue was still there. You still had to get up every day and go to this place that was not serving you any longer, and you had to do it. Even though you had all these distractions outside of work that obviously helped, but you still had to go and spend 9, 10, maybe 12 hours every day in a state of misery.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I was very lucky. I mean, I had a nice boss. My colleagues were nice. The job was pretty easy. So, I think I just felt after a while, but I've got this other skill set and this other passions, and they just have no use here. This is like a check your personality at the door, do your work, smile, move along kind of place. And I needed something different. So really, when that pain in my chest happened in 2017 and recalled how I had let myself down again, I flipped immediately to the pain that I felt in my neck when I didn't deal with the emotions of my marriage. And I said, oh no, I am not doing this again. I am not turning this pain into a physical ailment. Nope, I'm out. And that was it. So I just committed that year. I said, I'm going. And I said, I'm going to quit this year. I'm not sure when, but along the way, I need to test myself. And I'm going to let life throw me circumstances, and I'm going to see if I'm actually really ready for this. And that's what I did.
How did you do that? Did you do like test traveling or?
So the situations that came up where I went to Iceland for the second time that January. The first time I had gone was for a long, like a weekend, basically. And I wanted to see the Northern Lights, but they're very unpredictable. So I didn't see them. And so this time I booked a week, and I saw the lights, and it was the most spectacular thing I've ever seen. So I just was like, when it came time to go, I thought, I don't want to go. And there was a 25-inch snowstorm hit Iceland. So I'm like, oh, good, they'll cancel the flights. Nope.
They're probably experts at snow.
Yeah, snow, wind, everything. So so I'm like, I go to the airport and I'm like, oh, does somebody need a seat? I'm happy to give up my seat. Like I wanted someone else. Like that was a lot of my life. I wanted someone else to hear my desire and make it happen. I didn't want to be the one to make it happen, you know? So it was an issue. So I ended up flying home. I felt like I was doing the wrong thing. They asked me to swap seats. Like I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't be on this flight. I shouldn't be going home. And then I had to give my seat away. And it's just like,
wow.
And then I got home and I felt like I'm just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I think I need to go back. And I looked at the forecast for the Northern Lights the next night, and it was so good that I knew that if I wasn't there, I would be really upset. So I basically, for the first time in my life, booked a return trip like within hours and just jumped on another plane back to Iceland, called my boss. I was like, hey, I was supposed to be in tomorrow. Nope, it's going to be a couple more days.
Wow.
And then called my mom and said, yeah, I'm turning around, driving back to the airport.
Wow.
So for me, that was a big, crazy thing to do. And the great thing is I do feel like you get rewarded when you take these risks, because I use miles to book the flight. So I sat down, had a nice row to myself, meet a guy in the row behind me. And I think I'm crazy. I think I booked this flight 8 hours in advance. This guy booked the same flight 3 hours in advance for the same reason. He just wanted to go see the Northern Lights. So he came with me on the tour that I had booked, and we saw the Northern Lights. So yeah, we saw them dance too. Like the first time I saw them, they were just very surreal and calm and beautiful. And this time they were just really active. So that was one. The second thing was during that week in Iceland, I met a Spanish guy. And we ended up staying up to 4 a.m. talking, and we stayed in touch for 6 months. And I went and he asked me to come see him for a weekend. So I was like, this is pretty crazy, because really I knew him for a few days in person, and the rest of it was an online relationship that in some ways isn't real, you know?
Right.
But I went, and the relationship obviously didn't work out. But for me, it was a big test, right? Test number 2, I know this is weird, I can't believe it, but I'm gonna do it. And then the third test was the hardest. And that was telling my mother that I was going to quit my job and go travel full time. So I ended up getting her drunk, and I told her.
Great strategy.
Yep. And it went really, really well. And then the next day she sobered up, and she started, for the next few weeks, she would give me almost every day a new reason I shouldn't do this.
Mm-hmm. Let me guess, health insurance, 401k, retirement savings,
career, but all kinds of stuff. And I started realizing as she would toss these things out at me, I said, oh, yeah, these are not my fears. Oh, I'm and so what she helped me do by throwing out these fears was, these aren't mine. I'm ready. So
very good.
But by the time I got to telling my boss I was quitting, it was the most anticlimactic moment. I was like, I thought this was going to be a big deal, but it wasn't.
Wow. And the joy, obviously, you must have felt, but just the physical feeling must have been amazing.
I don't think I noticed it till I started my first trip. It was like I was proud of myself, but the feeling in my body came when because picking where to go when you can go anywhere is a whole, you no longer are worried about, oh, well, Africa is so far away. I only 2 weeks. I have forever. It's not 2 weeks. It's a whole different thing. So I chose Costa Rica. And when I was online for immigration, I never in my life before my heart sang. I've never felt that before. Literally, my heart was singing, and I heard my heart say, thank you so much for doing this.
Wow. And how long did you stay in Costa Rica?
So interestingly, I had 6 weeks for that first trip because I had to come back for jury duty. And so me being in the vacation mentality at that time, I thought 6 weeks is forever. So I was like 2 weeks in Costa Rica, 2 weeks in Peru, 2 weeks in Argentina. That was my plan. And then I was just loving Costa Rica. So I'm like, why would I leave? So instead, I did something like about 5 weeks in Costa Rica and a few days in Panama and a few days in Nicaragua.
Okay. Wow. And I would imagine that, you said you thanked yourself while you're standing on line for immigration into Costa Rica, that the strength must have just continued to build. You were proud of yourself. You made this change. Scary in some ways, right? Because, to leave the security of a full-time job with benefits and, a roof over your head and just get out there and really be on your own. It must have been an extraordinary feeling, experience, emotions, physically.
So again, for me, it's sort of built up over time because the first 2 weeks, again, it was like being on vacation, right? And it was at that 2-week mark where I suddenly realized, oh, I'm not flying home to go back to work. What am I doing? And I also think that we are always tested when we do step out into something, like to see how badly we want it. And so I had met this lovely couple from Canada on one of my bus rides. And we agreed to meet, and I was now in a place called Corcovado National Park, which is sort of like really remote. Been there. You've been there, okay?
Yes.
So bad Wi-Fi because you're like in the national park, and so there was I was sleeping in a tent on the beach. The manager was really unhelpful, so I had to figure out how to meet them. So it was this whole horrible experience of figuring that out. I couldn't do it. I was like, the only ways to get to them were a dangerous sounding overnight bus ride or a very expensive flight. So I, at that point, had a meltdown and seriously considered packing and just going back to New York and asking for my job back, because I was like, if I can't figure this out, because this is, remember, I've all my life I've been working in corporate and I've had vacation, and on vacation you get 1 or 2 weeks and you pre-plan the heck out of it because you don't have time and you got to see as much as possible. So now I'm like, that's how I approached the first 2 weeks of my trip to Costa Rica. And thank God before I left, I stopped myself and I said, wait, if I'm pre-planning everything, I don't get to experience go with the flow travel.
Right.
Which when I look back is actually quite brave, because I could have. There's plenty of people that do pre-plan the whole thing. Yeah. But I'm like, but I want to see what I'm made of, And so here I am at that 2-week mark. it's a last night of pre-booked plans and I got nothing and I don't know what I'm doing. And that was that pivotal moment where I was like, I thought I was going to just give up. And I was crying and right in the middle of this pity party, some voice of inner wisdom just said, Heather, instead of trying to figure out how to get where you can't go, why don't you see where you can go? I was like, who said that? That's so smart. So, and that's how, then I was like, oh, well, the boat takes me here and there's a bus and the first stop is this place called Uvita. I'll go there. And that really changed the game of travel for me. And that's when I was like, then I started being like, oh, okay, I got some skills here. I can do this. And I remember the first 6 to 12 months of this experience. I think I wrote a blog post. I felt more proud of myself and more accomplished than my entire corporate career.
Wow.
I did things like I ziplined. I didn't know what ziplining was before I went to Costa Rica. And then when I heard it was holding on to a string thousands of feet above the air and you might die, I'm like, that's just dumb. And then I did it and I'm like, okay, I don't know that I need to do it again, but I did it. Check that off, and I was like, wow, look at all I've done that I would never have accomplished if I didn't step out of my corporate career, So,
I think you make an incredibly valid point in that you said earlier you got back from your study abroad as a high school student, and you bought into the I have to go to college, I have to get a job, I have to have a career. And we get lulled into that sense of buying into things, and here you are, so proud of yourself for things that have nothing to do with any of that.
Yep, that's the irony, and part of that was there was that great book. I forget the name of it, but a woman interviewed patients in hospice care about their 5 biggest regrets.
Mm-hmm.
And I very much was present before I quit to the fact that I kept having these horrible visions of me being 90, looking back at my life and wondering what would have happened if I had had the courage to quit and do this.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I don't want to be that person, because I know when I quit that year, I knew, and I told it one of my friends, I said, if I don't quit this year, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm going to actually go the other way, and I'm going to start making peace with the fact that I didn't have the courage to do it. And I'm just going to continue onwards.
Do you have any regrets on maybe missing out on some of the ordinary things that you are missing out on because you are in another country and away from family and friends, like birthdays or other milestones or other types of celebrations? And I think of that because, just this past weekend, I was at somebody's 50th birthday party, and it was a lot of fun. And, to see somebody turn 50 and, so simple things like that. You're not really there for regular life things. What is your take on that?
Yeah. It depends. I mean, first off, I have a fairly small family. So sadly, my stepdad passed away a year ago, and I had been stuck in New Zealand, and I was making my way back with, I'm like, oh God, I have to wear a mask on the plane. And it seems like a really long time to like go through 30 or 50 hours of like wearing a mask on all the stuff. So I broke up the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And I thankfully made it back and was able to spend his last 2 weeks with him. So, and I think the pandemic was an anomaly, I hope.
Mm-hmm.
But that was hard, like during those 2 years. But I think it is hard to miss some of the family things. Although, to be fair, like I said, I have a small family. I don't know that we do a lot of big family things that I was missing. I always came back for Thanksgiving and Christmas. So like holiday stuff, I didn't miss because I did feel that was a time I wanted to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say if I had, like my brother's about to turn 30. So hopefully when he's going to pick somewhere in the world to go. And if I can make it, I'm going to go, so
Okay.
I think you make some of them, and then the other ones I try to stay in touch with by Zoom or something more regular, and make sure that we stay connected in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I would say certainly sometimes like there's like your good friends that you miss that close contact with. And then as you travel, usually you also meet some great people along the way. So then you have your travel friends too. So yeah.
Yeah, you get to build a wider community of people you choose, right?
Yes, exactly.
Which is a nice reward.
Yes, I agree.
So what's next?
Next up, actually, I'm going to Malaysia in a couple of weeks and planning South Korea. And then I always, sometimes people say, oh, I want to meet up with you. And I'm like, I want that too, but I don't know what I'm doing exactly. And you're going to want an exact date and an itinerary. And I'm like right now, I'm like, okay, Malaysia, South Korea. But I also, a friend a travel friend, right, who I only know in the context of, this is another really cool thing that happens. I've met great people online. I have a podcast series where I stopped doing them, but I interviewed like 25 other people who quit after 40 to go travel. And so I met one of these ladies I met in Italy last summer, which was for the first time. And another of them who I really want to meet is in Asia right now. We're missing each other in Kuala Lumpur just by days. And she's going to Sri Lanka. And I'm like, who knows? Maybe I'll just like fly to Sri Lanka for a little bit. I don't know. So we'll see what happens.
And while you're on the road, you're working, you're doing your coaching and helping other people to realize this similar dream of just being a full-time traveler and living life while on
Yeah,
the
so I do that. I do the coaching and I also do travel writing. So that's very handy.
Okay.
So those have been the main sources of income. I'm actually also really close to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is when you can start monetizing it. So
great.
yeah, so I've been working hard at that, and I'll hopefully cross that threshold this year and add that to the ways that I'm making money while I travel.
Great. Yeah, I guess that's the key, kind of make money as you travel.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Heather. This has been such a great conversation, inspirational in so many ways. I'm excited. I want to I want to do this. So thanks very much for sharing your story. And it's a really lighthearted one because, we, like I said, we all go through these points in our life where we feel stuck or we're just going through something that's not serving us. And just to have an example of somebody who did something about it and the incredible outcome that you've had is not only just that you're traveling the world, but, like you said, the fact that you thanked yourself and how you felt about making that decision. And you knew then it was the right decision, that you made the right choice. And, that's not always easy for all of us, especially if you have children or if you're taking care of elderly parents. It's not for everyone, but hopefully people listening can gain some level of inspiration and perspective on how they might be able to rectify their own less than happy place that they might be in. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope that too. I hope it was inspirational, and just know that, I think the journey of following our heart is difficult because our heart usually wants something that to our brain is very illogical. So, but our heart always puts us where we need to be in the best place for us.
Right. Well, thanks again. Listeners, hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. If so, please like us, share us, and tell your friends about us. And if you have any questions, suggestions, or comments, you can email me at thehealthabilityproject@gmail.com. Thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for joining us today at the Healthability Project. We'd love to hear from you, so please email us your questions, comments, or suggestions, including future guests, to thehealthabilityproject@gmail.com. And please like us, subscribe, and share us with your friends.